The ladder of success is never crowded at the top. Chapter 11. Power of the Mastermind. The driving force. The ninth step toward riches. Power is essential for success in the accumulation of money. Plans are useless without sufficient power to turn them into action. This chapter will describe the method by which an individual may attain and apply power. Power may be defined as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. Power, as the term is used here, refers to organized effort, sufficient to enable an individual to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Organized effort is produced through the coordination of effort of two or more people who work toward a definite end in a spirit of harmony. Power is required to accumulate money. Power is necessary to keep the money after it has been accumulated. How can power be acquired? If power is organized knowledge, let us examine the sources of knowledge. Infinite intelligence. This source of knowledge may be accessed with the aid of creative imagination through the subconscious mind, as described in the previous chapters on faith, autosuggestion, and imagination, and as will be elaborated on in Chapter 13, the subconscious mind, and Chapter 14, the brain. Accumulated experience. The accumulated experience of humanity may be found in any well-equipped public library. An important part of this accumulated experience is taught in public schools and colleges, where it has been classified and organized. Editor's comment. The computer revolution and the Internet have had a profound effect upon the quantity of information available and on the ease of access and ability to organize that information. This is the end of the editor's comment. Experiment and research. In the field of science, and in practically every other walk of life, people are gathering, classifying, and organizing new facts daily. This is the source to which you must turn when knowledge is not available through accumulated experience. Here, too, the creative imagination must often be used. Editor's comment. Today, because of the computer revolution and the Internet, publishing and dissemination of information happens so quickly that there is almost no lag time between experiment or research and the integration of those results into available knowledge. This is the end of the editor's comment. Knowledge may be acquired from any of the foregoing sources. It may be converted into power by organizing it into definite plans and by putting those plans into action. If you examine the three sources of knowledge, you will see how difficult it would be if you had to depend upon just your own efforts to assemble all the knowledge you need and turn it into definite plans of action. If your plans are big and comprehensive, generally you will have to get others to cooperate with you if you are going to organize your knowledge so that you can turn your plans into power. Gaining power through the mastermind. The mastermind may be defined as coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. No individual may have great power without utilizing the mastermind. In Chapter 8, Organized Planning, I commented on how to create plans for translating desire into its monetary equivalent. If you carry out these instructions with persistence and intelligence, and use discrimination in choosing your mastermind group, your objective will have been halfway reached even before you begin to recognize it. Editor's comments. In the following section, Hill describes the two kinds of power that an individual can access by assembling a mastermind alliance and working with that group. The first kind of power that he mentions is economic power, which needs no comment from the editors. However, to describe the second kind of power, for want of a better term, Hill uses the term psychic. Because this word has taken on connotations that Hill never intended, this concept deserves clarification before you read on. As is obvious throughout this book, Napoleon Hill was a very practical man. His use of the word psychic in this chapter has nothing to do with seances, fortune-telling, magic, or any other aspect of the paranormal. The word psychic is defined as of or pertaining to the human mind, and Hill uses the term to describe something pertaining to the mind that everyone reading this book has experienced. It is that feeling you get when you are working together with other people. Everyone is very focused on the same goal, and it is going so well that you seem to be in tune with each other. When that happens, you not only work well with the others, but your own work and ideas also seem to be operating on a higher and better plane than usual. This is the end of the editor's comments. So you may better understand the potential power available to you through a properly chosen mastermind group, I will explain the two characteristics of the mastermind principle. One kind of power is economic, and the other psychic. Economic power. The economic feature is obvious. Economic advantages may be created by any person who surrounds himself with the advice, counsel, and personal cooperation of a group of people who are willing to lend him or her wholehearted aid in a spirit of perfect harmony. This form of cooperative alliance has been the basis of nearly every great fortune. Your understanding of this great truth may definitely determine your financial status. Psychic power. What I refer to as the psychic phase of the mastermind principle is a little more difficult to comprehend. You'll get a better sense of the meaning from this statement. No two minds ever come together without creating a third, invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. The human mind is a form of energy. When the minds of two people are coordinated in a spirit of harmony, the energy of each mind seems to pick up on the energy of the other mind, which constitutes the psychic phase of the mastermind. The mastermind principle, or rather the economic feature of it, was first called to my attention by Andrew Carnegie. Discovery of this principle was responsible for the choice of my life's work. Mr. Carnegie's mastermind group consisted of a staff of approximately 50 people with whom he surrounded himself for the purpose of manufacturing and marketing steel. He knew little of the technical side of the steel business. His strength was his ability to get others to work together in perfect harmony toward achieving a common goal. Carnegie attributed his entire fortune to the power he accumulated through this mastermind alliance. If you analyze the record of anyone who has accumulated a great fortune, and many of those who have accumulated modest fortunes, you will find that they have either consciously or unconsciously employed the mastermind principle. Great power can be accumulated through no other principle. How to multiply your brain power. The human brain may be compared to an electric battery. It is a fact that a group of batteries will provide more energy than a single battery. It is also a fact that the amount of energy provided by each individual battery depends upon the number and capacity of the cells it contains. The brain functions in a similar fashion. Some brains are more efficient than others. A group of brains coordinated or connected in a spirit of harmony will provide more thought energy than a single brain, just as a group of electric batteries will provide more energy than a single battery. Through this metaphor, you can see that the mastermind principle holds the secret of the power wielded by those who surround themselves with others of great brain power. The following will further define the so-called psychic phase of the mastermind principle. When a group of individual minds are coordinated and function in harmony, the increased energy created through that alliance becomes available to every individual mind in the group. Henry Ford began his business career under the handicap of poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance. Within the inconceivably short period of 10 years, Mr. Ford mastered these three handicaps, and within 25 years, he made himself one of the richest men in America. How did he do it? Here is an important clue. Mr. Ford's most rapid strides became noticeable from the time he became a personal friend of the famed inventor Thomas A. Edison. In the story of Ford's success, this is just the first indication of what the influence of one mind upon another can accomplish. Follow his story further, and you will have even more evidence that power may be produced through friendly alliance of minds. It is a fact that Mr. Ford's most outstanding achievements became even more pronounced later, after he formed the acquaintances of Harvey Firestone, John Burroughs, and Luther Burbank, each a man of great mental capacity. People take on the nature and the habits and the power of thought of those with whom they associate in a spirit of sympathy and harmony. Through his association with Edison, Burbank, Burroughs, and Firestone, Mr. Ford added to his own brain power the intelligence, experience, knowledge, and spiritual forces of these four men. Henry Ford used the mastermind principle in exactly the way it is described in this book. This principle is available to you. I have already mentioned Mahatma Gandhi. Let me review the method by which he attained his stupendous power. It may be explained in a few words. He came by power through inducing over 200 million people to coordinate with mind and body in a spirit of harmony for a definite purpose. In brief, Gandhi accomplished a miracle, for it is a miracle when 200 million people can be induced, not forced, to cooperate in a spirit of harmony. If you doubt that this is a miracle, try to get even 2 people to cooperate in a spirit of harmony for any length of time. Every person who manages a business knows how difficult it is to get employees to work together in a spirit even remotely resembling harmony. Editor's comments. The first step in putting together your mastermind alliance is to clearly know your desire. Your desire will tell you what you need. It could be a small group, just 2 or 3 people, as was the case with Stephen Jobs and Steve Wozniak when they formed Apple, Bill Gates and Paul Allen launching Microsoft, or Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen creating DreamWorks SKG. Or it could be a large group, such as the Mastermind Alliance of 30 regional directors of Century 21 Real Estate, which founder Arthur Bartlett firmly believes was essential to the company's success. Napoleon Hill suggests that in most cases, it should be a dozen people or less, and generally the smaller the better. Choosing the people means finding those who not only share your vision, but who will also share their ideas, information, and contacts with you. They will let you use the full strength of their experience, training, and knowledge as if it were your own, and they will do it in a spirit of perfect harmony. The question that immediately comes to every reader's mind is, where do I find people who will help me to that degree? Napoleon Hill cannot answer that question for you, but he does tell you what to look for. Where you look is up to you. And if you really do have the desire to succeed, you will start looking and you won't give up until you find the right people. Napoleon Hill's description of the mastermind that appears below is augmented with additional material from articles and speeches he wrote after the publication of Think and Grow Rich. These were compiled for publication by Hill's friend, mentor, and business associate W. Clement Stone, and appear in 2 books, Napoleon Hill's Keys to Success and Believe and Achieve. This is the end of the editor's comments. Finding your mastermind members. Ally yourself with a group of as many people as you may need in order to assemble a mastermind that will assist you in creating and carrying out your plan or plans for the accumulation of money. Compliance with this instruction is absolutely essential. Choose to associate with people who share common values, goals, and interests, yet who each have a strong desire to contribute to the overall effort. Trial and error will be part of the process, but there are 2 qualities to keep foremost in your mind. The first is ability to do the job. Do not select people for your alliance merely because you know them and like them. Such people are valuable to you because they improve the quality of your life, but they are not necessarily suited to a mastermind alliance. Your best friend may not be the most knowledgeable marketing professional, but perhaps he or she can introduce you to someone who is. The second quality is the ability to work in a spirit of harmony with others. There must be a complete meeting of minds without any reservations. Personal ambition must be subordinate to the achievement of the purpose of the alliance. This includes your own. You must also insist upon confidentiality. Some people can give away an idea simply because they love to talk. You don't need them in your group. Attune yourself to every member of the group. Try to imagine how you would react in a given situation if you were in his or her shoes. Pay attention to body language. Sometimes facial expressions and movements say far more about what a person feels than the words that come out of his or her mouth. Be sensitive to what is not being said. Sometimes what is left out is far more important than what is included. Don't try to force the group along too quickly. Allow for those who want to test ideas by playing devil's advocate. Compensating your mastermind. Before forming your mastermind alliance, decide what advantages and benefits you may offer the individual members of your group in return for their cooperation. No one will work indefinitely without some form of compensation. No intelligent person should request or expect another to work without adequate compensation. Wealth will obviously have the most appeal to your members. Be fair and generous in your offer. Recognition and self-expression may be just as important as money to some of your members. Remember that in such partnerships, the principle of going the extra mile, doing more and better than paid for, is especially important. As the leader, you should set an example for the others to follow. Each member must agree at the outset on the contribution each will make and on the division of benefits and profits. Otherwise, be assured that dissension will arise, you will have wasted everyone's time, you will ruin friendships, and your venture will be destroyed. Meeting with your mastermind. Arrange to meet with the members of your mastermind group at least twice a week, and more often if possible, until you have jointly perfected the necessary plan or plans for the accumulation of money. The first meeting will be involved in sorting out strengths and weaknesses, and in fine-tuning your plans. Your alliance must be active to do any good. Establish specific responsibilities and action steps to be taken. As your mastermind matures and harmony grows among the members, you will find that the meetings create a flow of ideas into every member's mind. Don't let the meetings become so regular and formalized that they inhibit phone calls and other less formal contact. Mastermind maintenance. Maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every member of your mastermind group. If you fail to carry out this instruction to the letter, you may expect to meet with failure. The mastermind principle cannot work where perfect harmony does not prevail. Create a non-threatening environment. Explore all ideas with equal interest and concern for the originator's feelings. Everyone must deal with everyone else on a completely ethical basis. No member should seek unfair advantage at the expense of others. As the leader, you must inspire confidence in your members by your dedication to your desire, which is the object of the group. The members must know with certainty that you are reliable, trustworthy, and loyal. When you are finally ready to present the results of your efforts to investors, buyers, or the public, you may face your greatest leadership challenge in maintaining the harmony of your mastermind. The group's efforts will now be judged by outsiders, and facing judgment takes courage and persistence. The courage of separate individuals is nothing compared with that of a united team. The more you are able to maintain harmony, the greater the power, and the greater the power, the more resistance you can overcome. Marriage and the mastermind. A mastermind alliance with the person you love most deeply is of untold importance. If you are married and have not built your relationship on the same principles of harmony that are crucial to any alliance, you may have some reselling to do with your spouse. Set aside time each day to talk about what you want to achieve and how you are going about it. Rely on your definiteness of purpose to build your persuasive abilities to convince your partner of the benefits of the work you are doing. It is very unlikely that your work will not affect your husband or wife in some significant way, and you absolutely must not drag your partner unwillingly into any adventure. Build your mastermind alliance into your marriage from the start, and it will steady and support you through the darkest moments. In fact, your whole family should be incorporated into your alliance. Lack of harmony at home can easily spill over elsewhere. A united family is a great team. The Mastermind and Infinite Intelligence. The list of sources from which you can get power is headed by infinite intelligence. When two or more people coordinate in a spirit of harmony and work toward a definite objective, they place themselves in position to absorb power directly from that great universal storehouse that I refer to as infinite intelligence. This is the greatest of all sources of power. It is the source to which geniuses and great leaders turn, whether they may be conscious of the fact or not. In Chapter 13, The Subconscious Mind, and Chapter 14, The Brain, the methods for accessing infinite intelligence will be described in greater detail. This is not a course on religion. Neither the principle of infinite intelligence nor any other principle in this book should be interpreted as interfering with, endorsing, or rejecting any person's religious beliefs. This book is confined exclusively to instructing the reader how to transmute the definite purpose of desire for money into its monetary equivalent. Read, and really think about what you are reading. Soon the entire subject will unfold, and you will see it in perspective. At this point, you are only seeing the detail of the individual chapters. Editor's comments. This chapter would not be complete without commenting on a mastermind that came into being almost 15 years after the first publication of Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill's own mastermind alliance with multimillionaire businessman and philanthropist W. Clement Stone. On May 2, 1951, at the age of 67, Napoleon Hill and his wife Annie Lou agreed it was time for Napoleon to think about retiring. They decided to begin by cutting back on his speaking engagements after he completed the lectures that were already on his calendar, including one he was scheduled to give a few weeks later in Chicago. Unbeknownst to them, at that event, W. Clement Stone had prearranged to sit at the head table next to Napoleon Hill. Like Hill, Stone had been born into poverty. At the age of 6, he started selling newspapers to help pay the rent, and by 13, he owned his own stand. By 16, he was selling insurance, and by 20, he'd managed to scrape together $100, which he used to start his own insurance agency. Stone was a consummate salesman and motivator, and his company was growing very nicely. Then in 1938, he read Think and Grow Rich, and was so inspired by it that he bought a copy for every one of his employees and continued to do so for each new person who joined his company. Over the years, this amounted to thousands of copies. When Stone was introduced to Hill, he told him about all the copies he had purchased of Think and Grow Rich and said that he firmly believed it was Hill's book that had transformed his sales force and turned his company from modest to extraordinary success. Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone found that they were in such complete accord that by the end of their first meeting, Hill had decided to postpone his retirement and join with Stone in a venture dedicated to creating a better world for this and future generations. Within a year, they launched Napoleon Hill Associates. They published new books by Hill, including How to Raise Your Own Salary and The Master Key to Riches. They reissued Hill's earlier bestsellers, and they co-authored a new bestseller, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. They also launched Success Unlimited magazine, created PMA Science of Success home study courses, made television programs, radio shows, a documentary film entitled A New Sound in Paris, which showed the amazing changes that happened when the entire town of Paris, Missouri, adopted the Napoleon Hill philosophy. And they both crisscrossed America speaking, teaching, giving interviews, and spreading the philosophy to as many people as possible. In addition to his work with Napoleon Hill Associates, Hill also consulted to W. Clement Stone's company, Combined Insurance Company of America. Hill designed and implemented a new training program for the sales force, which was so successful he astounded the business world by helping Stone grow his company from $30 million in assets to $100 million in less than 10 years. When W. Clement Stone passed away in 2002, his company, now known as Aon Corporation, had revenues of $2 billion a year. W. Clement Stone had personally given more than $275 million to various charitable and philanthropic organizations. There has perhaps never been a greater example of coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. The sheer volume of work and scope of influence achieved in a 10-year period by Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone leaves little question as to the power and importance of a mastermind alliance. This is the end of the editor's comments. The power of positive emotions. Money is shy and elusive. It must be wooed and won by methods not unlike those used by a determined lover. And the power you use in the wooing of money is not greatly different from what you use to attract the one you love. It is the power of positive emotion. That power, when successfully used in the pursuit of money, must be mixed with faith. It must be mixed with desire. It must be mixed with persistence. It must be applied through a plan, and that plan must be set into action. When money comes in large quantities, it flows to the one who accumulates it as easily as water flows downhill. There exists a great unseen stream of power, which may be compared to a river that flows in two directions. One side flows in one direction, carrying all who get into that side of the stream onward and upward to wealth. The other side flows in the opposite direction, carrying all who are unfortunate enough to get into it and can't pull themselves out downward to misery and poverty. Everyone who has accumulated a great fortune has recognized the existence of this stream of life. It consists of one's thinking process. Positive emotions form the side of the stream that carries you to fortune. Negative emotions form the side that carries you down to poverty. This is a point of great importance to the person who is following this book with the object of accumulating a fortune. If you are caught in the side of the stream of power that leads to poverty, this book will serve as an oar by which you may propel yourself over into the other side of the stream. But it can serve you only through application and use. Merely reading and passing judgment on it, either one way or another, will be of no benefit to you. Poverty and riches can change places, but when riches take the place of poverty, the change only happens through well-conceived and carefully executed plans. The same is not true of poverty. Poverty needs no plan. It needs no one to help it because it is bold and ruthless. Riches are shy and timid. They have to be attracted. More gold has been mined from the thoughts of men than has ever been taken from the earth. Chapter 12. Sexuality, Charisma, and Creativity. The 10th step toward riches. Editor's comments. What motivates human beings is the subject of continuing scientific research and philosophical debate. There is general agreement that the prime motivators are the basic human needs for food and water, shelter and clothing, and safety. Beyond these basic life-sustaining needs, however, there are other factors that motivate people to action. It is the definition of the other factors and their order of importance that continues to be open to interpretation. Perhaps the most widely known theory is psychologist Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, which lists 8 levels of motivational forces, starting with the basic physiological and safety needs, then ascends through belonging and love, esteem, understanding, aesthetics, self-actualization, and transcendence. Other psychologists and sociologists have defined and arranged the categories differently, but in almost all cases there is agreement that after the primary life-sustaining needs are met, sex and love are the next most important motivating forces. Napoleon Hill also compiled a hierarchy of what he referred to as mind stimuli. Like Maslow and other researchers, Hill identified sex and love as the most powerful non-life-sustaining factors in human motivation, but his focus was not on sex and love as they pertain to procreation. Hill was intrigued by the theory that if sex and love are such powerful forces in driving humans to action, there might be a correlation to outstanding achievement or material success. And if such a relationship exists, can the motivating force be intentionally channeled to this purpose? In the original edition of the following chapter, Hill used terms such as sex emotion and sex energy in his analysis of these motivating forces as they relate to attitude and personality. In this context, the use of the word sex was not meant to have the physical connotation that it often has today. Today, these concepts would be conveyed by words such as sexuality, passion, or charisma. In this edition, where appropriate, the editors have opted for the modern usage of these and similar terms. This is the end of the editor's comments. Charisma. The world is ruled, and the destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced more by feelings than by reason. Your creativity is set into action entirely by emotions, and not by cold reason. The human mind responds to stimuli, through which it may be keyed up in such a way that it takes on characteristics such as enthusiasm, creative imagination, and intense desire. The stimuli to which the mind responds most freely are 1. The desire for sexual expression, 2. Love, 3. A burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain, money, 4. Music, 5. Close friendship and/or admiration, 6. A mastermind alliance based upon the harmony of 2 or more people who ally themselves for advancement, 7. Mutual suffering, such as that experienced by people who are persecuted, 8. Autosuggestion, 9. Fear, 10. Alcohol and drugs. The desire for sexual expression comes at the head of the list of stimuli that step up the mind and start the wheels of physical action. The emotions associated with a human sexual drive bring into being a state of mind. When motivated by this desire, people often show courage, willpower, persistence, imagination, and creative ability that they don't normally have. So strong and impelling is the desire for sexual expression that people freely run the risk of life and reputation because of it. A river may be dammed and its water controlled for a time, but eventually it will force an outlet. The same is true of the emotions related to sexual expression. It may be submerged and controlled for a time, but its very nature causes it to be ever-seeking means of expression. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it can be given other outlets that enrich the body, mind, and spirit. When harnessed and redirected, this motivating force has been used as a powerful creative force in literature, art, and other pursuits, including the accumulation of riches. A teacher who has trained more than 30,000 salespeople came to the conclusion that individuals who are most confident sexually are the most efficient salespeople. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is a manifestation of sexual energy. Editor's comments. There have been numerous psychological and sociological studies about the relationship between sexuality and success that tend to support Hill's observation. Because physical characteristics are the most quantifiable aspects of sexuality, most research studies focus on gender, attractiveness, body size, and age, and they measure indicators such as first impressions, expectation of performance, perception of performance, and social interaction. These studies generally conclude that when comparing individuals of equal competence, for men, the perception is that taller men will do better than short, a full head of hair will outperform balding, handsome or virile will beat out plain or older. For women, the results are comparable. The perception is that attractive performs better than plain, slim or shapely scores higher than overweight, younger is expected to be superior to older. These observations about physical sexuality may seem obvious, but they lead to a conclusion that is very significant. Obviously, not all people who succeed are tall and virile or attractive and shapely. It is also a fact that the success of those who are short, balding, plump, or plain isn't always due to superior skill or luck. Clearly, there is another kind of attractiveness that often supersedes physical appeal. This other kind of attractiveness is connected to human sexuality, but it is not what would usually be referred to as sexy. People who have this quality are often said to have chemistry, personality, charm, or appeal. Hill called this kind of attraction personal magnetism. Today, the more common term is charisma. This is the end of the editor's comments. When employing salespeople, a good sales manager looks for personal magnetism or charisma as the first requirement. People who lack this kind of sexual energy will never become enthusiastic nor inspire others with enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what you're selling. The public speaker, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who is lacking in charisma is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. That, plus the fact that most people are influenced through an appeal to their emotions, should easily convince you of the importance of charisma as a part of the salesperson's ability. Master salespeople attain mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute charisma, sexual energy, into sales enthusiasm. That statement explains the actual, practical meaning of sexual transmutation. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The transmutation of sexual energy means switching the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Salespeople who know how to turn on charisma have acquired the art of sexual transmutation, whether they know it or not. The majority of salespeople who transmute their sexual energy do so without being aware of what they are doing or how they are doing it. You can cultivate and develop this quality in your dealings with others. Through cultivation and understanding, this vital motivating force may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in relationships between people. This energy may be communicated to others in the following ways. The handshake. The touch of the hand indicates instantly the presence of charisma or the lack of it. The tone of voice. Charisma or sexual energy is the factor with which the voice may be colored or made musical and charming. Posture and carriage of the body. People with charisma move briskly and with grace and ease. The vibrations of thought. People with charisma project sexuality through their personality in a way that influences those around them. Clothing and style. People who are charismatic are usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. Editor's comments. Having established a link between sexuality and success in the form of charisma, in the following section, Napoleon Hill explores how sexuality might also be a motivating factor in success by enhancing creativity. To illustrate the connection, Hill draws upon the biographies of historical figures who exhibited both charisma and exceptional creativity. In the time since Hill conducted his research, many women have risen to positions of power and influence. Their accomplishments have been well documented and are readily available in bookstores and libraries. However, when Hill was assembling his data, the majority of historical biographies available were about successful men. Further, the successful industrialists and political leaders he had personally studied during the previous 30 years were also men. Because of this limitation, Hill does not theorize about the role men might play in motivating the success of women. This issue is addressed in a later editorial comment. This is the end of the editor's comments. Creativity. It seemed quite significant to me when I made the discovery that practically every great leader I had the privilege of analyzing was a man whose achievements were largely inspired by a woman. In most instances, the woman was a wife, of whom the public had heard little or nothing. In a few of the cases I studied, the source of inspiration was the other woman. The pages of history are filled with the records of great men whose achievements may be traced directly to the influence of women who aroused the creative faculties of their minds. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of these. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When his better judgment or reasoning faculty prompted him to put Josephine aside, he began to decline. His defeat and exile to St. Helena were not far distant. Abraham Lincoln was a notable example of a great leader who achieved his greatness through the discovery and use of his faculty of creative imagination. It is noted in practically every book written about Lincoln that he discovered and began to use this faculty as the result of the love that he experienced when he met Anne Rutledge. This is more than an interesting historical fact. It is of significance in connection with the role sexuality plays in the study of the source of genius. Following is a list of famous men of outstanding achievement: George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, William Shakespeare, Abraham Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Robert Burns, Thomas Jefferson, Elbert Hubbard, Elbert H. Gary, Woodrow Wilson, John H. Patterson, Andrew Jackson, Enrico Caruso. Wherever there was evidence available in connection with the lives of these men of achievement, it indicated most convincingly that each possessed a highly developed sexual nature. An analysis of the information taken from biographies and historical writings leads to the following conclusions. 1. Those of greatest achievement have a highly developed sexual nature, but have learned the art of transmutation of sexual energy. 2. Those who have accumulated great fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition in literature, art, industry, architecture, and the professions were motivated by the influence of a mate or lover. When driven by these emotions, people become gifted with a superpower for action. If you understand this, you will also understand that sexual transmutation contains the secret of creative ability. Editor's comments. As noted previously, although Hill's analysis focused on men, today there is a wide range of biographies about women who have succeeded in every aspect of life, including business, politics, religion, sports, entertainment, and the arts. Bearing in mind that biographical information is always subjective, the reader can now find ample material from which to draw a conclusion as to whether Hill's theory about sexuality as a motivating force is equally evident in women. Napoleon Hill had to do an in-depth analysis of biographies in searching for indications that the subject's sexuality had a correlation to their success. Today, we just turn on the television and we're inundated with intimate details about both men and women, suggesting that the best and the brightest are apparently also the sexiest. Although scandals aren't usually cited as scientific proof, the exposés of some of the biggest entertainment and sports stars, high-profile CEOs of major companies, numerous politicians, and even a few presidents all make at least a common-sense case for Hill's theory about the correlation between sexuality and success. This is the end of the editor's comments. Obviously, this does not mean that everyone who is highly sexed is a genius. People attain the status of a genius only when and if they stimulate their minds so that they can draw upon the forces available through the creative faculty of the imagination. Although it is the most important of the stimuli or motivators, the mere possession of sexual energy is not sufficient to produce a genius. The energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of a genius. Genius and creative imagination. A definition of genius might be someone who has discovered how to increase the intensity of thought to the point where that person can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of thought. This definition should prompt some questions in the mind of anyone reading this book. The first question should be, how may one communicate with sources of knowledge that are not available through ordinary thought? The next question should be, are there known sources of knowledge that are available only to geniuses, and if so, what are these sources and exactly how may they be reached? In the following, I will offer methods so that you can experiment and prove to yourself that this is true. By doing so, you will have the answer to both questions. Editor's comment. Humans perceive things through the 5 senses of sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Another kind of perception, as when you have a feeling about something, was discussed in the chapters on desire, faith, and autosuggestion. This kind of perception is often referred to as the 6th sense, and in the following Hill explores the relationship between sexuality, motivation, creative imagination, and the 6th sense. This is the end of the editor's comment. The reality of a 6th sense has been fairly well established. This 6th sense is creative imagination. The faculty of creative imagination is something the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime, and if they do use it, it usually happens by mere accident. Only a small number of people deliberately use their creative imagination for a specific purpose. Those who do use this faculty voluntarily and with understanding of its functions are geniuses. Creative imagination is the direct link between your finite mind and what I have termed infinite intelligence. All revelations and all discoveries of basic or new principles in the field of invention take place through the faculty of creative imagination. When ideas, concepts, or hunches flash into your mind, they can only have come from one or more of the following sources. 1. From the mind of some other person who has just released the thought, idea, or concept through conscious thought. 2. Your subconscious mind, which stores every thought and impression that ever reached your brain through any of the 5 senses. 3. From another person's subconscious storehouse. 4. Infinite intelligence. There are no other possible sources from which inspired ideas or hunches may be received. When brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 mind stimulants listed at the beginning of this chapter, it has the effect of lifting you far above the horizon of ordinary thought. It permits you to envision distance, scope, and quality of thoughts not available on the lower plane, such as when you are solving routine problems of business. When you are lifted to a higher level of thought through mind stimulation, it is as though you have taken off in an airplane. You can now see over and beyond the horizon that limits your vision when you are on the ground. Not only that, But while you are on this higher level of thought, you are not even aware of such things as the problems of gaining the three basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. You are in a world of thought in which the ordinary workaday thoughts have been removed, just as the hills and valleys that obstruct your vision on the ground don't interfere when you are in an airplane. While on this exalted plane of thought, the creative faculty of the mind is given freedom for action. The way has been cleared for the sixth sense to function. It becomes receptive to ideas that could not reach the individual under any other circumstances. The sixth sense is the faculty that marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. Developing your creative imagination. A mind stimulant is any influence that will either temporarily or permanently increase the intensity of thought. The previously mentioned 10 major stimulants are those most commonly resorted to. Through these sources, you may commune with infinite intelligence, enter the storehouse of your subconscious mind, or perhaps even that of another person. That is all there is to genius. The more you use your creative faculty, the more alert and receptive it becomes to factors originating outside your conscious mind. And the more this creative faculty is used, the more you will rely upon it for your thoughts and ideas. This faculty can be cultivated and developed only through use. What we generally refer to as our conscience operates entirely through the faculty of the sixth sense. The great artists, writers, musicians, and poets become great because they acquire the habit of relying upon the still small voice that speaks from within through their creative imagination. Anyone with a keen imagination knows that some of their best ideas come through so-called hunches. One of the best-known public speakers admits that his speeches are only really great when he closes his eyes and begins to rely entirely upon the faculty of creative imagination. When asked why he closed his eyes just before the climax of his speech, he replied, "I do it because then I speak through ideas that come to me from within." One of America's most successful and best-known financiers has the habit of closing his eyes for 2 or 3 minutes before making a decision. When asked why, he replied, "With my eyes closed, I am able to draw upon a source of superior intelligence." Dr. Elmer R. Gates created more than 200 useful patents through the process of cultivating and using his creative faculty. His method is significant to anyone interested in attaining to the status of genius. Dr. Gates was one of the really great, though less publicized, scientists of the world. In his laboratory, he had what he called his personal communication room. It was practically soundproof, and all light could be shut out. It had a small table on which he kept a pad of writing paper. In front of the table, on the wall, was a light switch. When Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into this room, seat himself at the table, shut off the lights, and concentrate on the known factors of the invention he was working on. He would stay in that position until ideas began to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. On one occasion, ideas came through so fast that he was forced to write for almost 3 hours. When the thoughts stopped flowing, he examined his notes and found they contained a minute description of principles that had no parallel in the known data of the scientific world. Moreover, the answer to his problem was right there in those notes. Dr. Gates earned his living by sitting for ideas. He did it for individuals and corporations, and some of the most sensible people and largest traditional corporations in America paid him to do it. The part of your mind that you generally use for reasoning may be faulty, because it is largely guided by your accumulated experience. Not all knowledge that you have learned through experience is accurate. Many times your creative ideas are much more reliable because they come from sources that are more reliable than those available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. Methods used by geniuses are available to you. The major difference between the genius and the ordinary inventor is that the genius makes use of both the synthesized and the creative faculties of imagination. For example, the scientific inventor begins an invention by organizing and combining the known ideas or principles accumulated through experience through the synthesized faculty, the reasoning faculty. If the inventor finds this accumulated knowledge is insufficient, the scientist then draws upon the sources of knowledge available through the creative faculty. The method by which the inventor does this varies with the individual, but this is the essence of the procedure. 1. The inventor stimulates his or her mind so that it functions on a higher-than-average plane through one or more of the mind stimulants. 2. The inventor then concentrates on the known factors, the finished part of the invention, and creates in his or her mind a perfect picture of the unknown factors, the unfinished part of the invention. The inventor holds this picture in mind until it has been taken over by the subconscious, then relaxes by clearing his or her mind of all thought and waits for the answer to flash into mind. Sometimes the results are both definite and immediate. At other times the results are negative, depending on the state of development of the sixth sense or creative faculty. Thomas Edison tried out more than 10,000 different combinations of ideas through the synthetic faculty of his imagination before he tuned in through the creative faculty and got the answer that perfected the incandescent light bulb. His experience was similar when he produced the phonograph. Editor's comments. Synchronicity, precognition, intuition, flashes of insight, hunches, gut feelings, symbolic dreams. These are all aspects of the phenomena Napoleon Hill was describing in his two correlated terms, creative imagination and infinite intelligence. And the fact that Hill made a serious study of this function of the mind puts him in exceptional company. The fathers of modern psychology, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, recognized and tried to explain this sixth sense. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, which is the very basis of Jungian psychology, is in many ways identical to Hill's concept of infinite intelligence. Scientists from Archimedes to Newton to Einstein to the team of Watson and Crick, who determined the structure of DNA, all conceded that intuition was instrumental in their discoveries. Duke University created a department for the sole purpose of studying these phenomena under scientific conditions. Many scientists admit to using personalized techniques similar to Hill's method for accessing intuition and creativity. These include Friedrich Kekule, who discovered the molecular structure of benzene through a dream symbol; physiologist Otto Loewi, who had a hunch followed by a dream that won him the Nobel Prize in Medicine; and as mentioned above, James Watson's breakthrough in the structure of DNA. Mozart, Shelley, Coleridge, Huxley, Descartes, Robert Louis Stevenson all claimed intuition played a role in their creations. William Blake learned the secret to a copper engraving process from a dream. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill firmly believed a premonition saved him from being killed by a bomb during the Blitz of London. As was noted earlier, psychiatry, clinical hypnosis, and affirmations all had to overcome considerable skepticism before they were accepted. That is also true of those phenomena Hill terms infinite intelligence. However, in the 1970s and 80s, the public's interest was piqued by well-researched books such as The Intuitive Edge by Philip Goldberg, Creative Dreaming by Patricia Garfield, and The Right Brain Experience by Mary Lee Zdenek. Though these anomalies of the mind still defy laboratory proof, contemporary researchers continue to publish tantalizing results. This is the end of the editorial comments. Nature has equipped the human brain and mind with internal stimulants that safely trigger the mind to tune in to fine and rare thoughts. No satisfactory substitute for nature's stimulants has ever been found. However, history is not lacking in examples of people who rose to the status of genius as the result of using artificial mind stimulants. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of alcohol, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote Kubla Khan during an opium-induced dream, and Robert Burns wrote best when intoxicated. For auld lang syne, my dear, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for auld lang syne. It is true that these and others who are known as geniuses relied upon artificial mind stimulation. But a more important lesson to remember is how many of these people destroyed themselves through the use of those stimulants. Editor's comments. In more contemporary terms, Hill's point about the dangers of artificial mind stimulants was never better made than it was in the television series Behind the Music, which began running on VH1 in the late 1990s. The series was meant to chronicle the lives of rock stars and celebrate their hits, but after viewing 2 or 3 of the shows, they all began to look the same. Young singer and band have a hit record, make millions of dollars, plunge into the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, everyone gets addicted, and they blow all of the money. By the end of the show, at least one band member overdoses, the band breaks up, the singer hits the skids, meets someone who inspires him or her to go into rehab, the ex-star makes an anti-drug TV spot and professes newfound faith and family values while announcing a comeback tour. Although the shows played like a bad parody of themselves, the fact that the stories were so similar, that so many talented singers and songwriters who depended on drugs ended up burning out, should be telling you something, especially if you don't just want to succeed, but want to keep and enjoy your success. This is the end of the editor's comments. Every intelligent person knows that stimulation in excess through alcohol or drugs is a destructive form of intemperance. For some, overindulgence in sexual expression may become just as destructive. A sexually obsessed person is not essentially different from a person addicted to drugs or alcohol. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower. Human sexuality is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone, almost impossible to completely control. When an individual is driven solely by emotions related to sexuality, that person may be capable of great achievement, but their actions are often disorganized and destructive. It is true that a person may pursue financial or business success by harnessing the driving force of sexual energy without self-control. But history is filled with evidence that such people likely have certain traits of character that rob them of the ability to either hold or enjoy their fortunes. Ignorance of this potential pitfall has cost thousands of people their happiness, even though they possessed riches. From my analysis of over 25,000 people, I found that those who succeed in an outstanding way often do not hit their stride until they are beyond the age of 40 or 50. This fact was so astounding that it prompted me to go into the study of its cause most carefully. My investigation disclosed that the major reason why many people do not succeed early in life is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence. The majority of people never learn that sexual energy has possibilities other than physical expression. And many of those who make this discovery only do so after having wasted many years during the time when their sexual energy was at its height. Most people come to the realization by accident, and many don't even know they have tapped into this power. They may recognize that their power of achievement has increased, but they have no idea what caused the change. They are just vaguely aware that nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex, so that they may draw upon these great forces and apply them as stimuli to action. The importance of love. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving people to heights of superachievement. When combined, these 3 emotions may lift you to an altitude of a genius. Every person who has been moved by genuine love knows that it leaves enduring traces upon the human heart. The effect of love endures, because love is spiritual in nature. Those who cannot be stimulated to great heights of achievement by love are hopeless. They are dead, though they may seem to live. If you believe you are unfortunate because you have loved and lost, you are wrong. One who is loved truly can never lose entirely. Love is whimsical and temperamental. It comes when it pleases and goes away without warning. Accept and enjoy it while it remains, but spend no time worrying about its departure. Worry will never bring it back. Dismiss the thought that love only comes once. Love may come and go times without number, but there are no two love experiences that affect you in just the same way. There may be one love experience that leaves a deeper imprint on the heart than all the others. But all love experiences are beneficial except to the person who becomes resentful and cynical when love makes its departure. Even the memories of love can lift you and stimulate your mind. Go back into your yesterdays at times and bathe your mind in the beautiful memories of past love. It will soften your worries and give you a source of escape from the unpleasant realities of life. And maybe, during this temporary retreat into the world of fantasy, your subconscious mind will yield to you ideas or plans that may change the entire financial or spiritual status of your life. There should be no disappointment over love, and there would be none if people understood the difference between the emotions of love and sex. Love is an emotion of many shades and colors, but the most intense and burning of all is that experienced in the blending of the emotions of love and sex. Marriages or committed relationships that are not blessed with love properly balanced with sex cannot be happy ones, and seldom endure. Love alone will not bring happiness, nor will sex alone. Love is spiritual. Sex is biological. No experience that touches the human heart with a spiritual force can possibly be harmful, except through ignorance or jealousy. The presence of destructive emotions in the human mind may poison it in a way that destroys your sense of justice and fairness. Just as a chemist can take certain chemical elements, none of which are harmful in themselves, and by mixing them together create a deadly poison, in a similar manner the emotions of sex and jealousy, when mixed, may turn just as lethal. Love is the emotion that serves as a safety valve and brings balance, reason, and constructive effort. Love is, without question, life's greatest experience. It can bring you into communion with infinite intelligence. When love guides the emotions, it may lead you well on your way toward creative effort. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance. Briefly, the process may be stated as follows. Encourage the presence of the positive emotions as the dominating thoughts in your mind, and discourage all the destructive emotions. The mind is a creature of habit. It thrives on the dominating thoughts fed to it. Through your willpower, you may discourage the presence of any emotion and encourage the presence of any other. Control of your mind, through the power of your will, is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. The secret of control lies in understanding the process of transmutation. When any negative emotion presents itself in your mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing your thoughts. There is no other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. When the emotion of romance is added to those of love and sex, the obstructions between the finite mind and infinite intelligence are removed. Then, a genius has been born.